Lisa Hyman and Max Kabat of goodDog bring a range of capabilities and experiences from Sports Illustrated to the WNBA to Wall Street to a much larger experiential firm and beyond. And they may specialize in what are called integrated marketing campaigns or brand strategy, but they really kind of hate to talk about that. What they love to talk about, though, is the ways that you build meaning out of your products and turn them into brands. So please welcome the goodDog crew.
We're going to try not to make this awkward, the back and forth thing, so bear with us. We can tap dance for you if it gets really awkward.
I'm Max.
I'm Lisa.
We're goodDog. We're the people that are keeping you probably from some kind of adult beverage or cleaning up or et cetera. This is sort of like the end cap of the day. goodDog is a group that works with founder-built, founder-led, middle stage growth kind of companies, high velocity growth companies that are looking to get to that next stage of growth. Companies like Angie's Boom Chicka Pop, Yasso, Crave Jerky. Some names for you guys to think about as we go through this. And so why should you care about this presentation? Folks have been up here speaking about their brands, awesome brands, enviable brands. I mean, I'm sort of a fanboy of Seth. I don't know who really isn't, right? And so what they're giving you are these really awesome explanations about how their story worked. What we're going to do is sort of go a little bit of a layer deeper to talk about how to actually do the work to become something that hopefully could be an honest tea. And so a product is just a thing. It's a bag of X. It's a can of Y. It's a box of Z. It's innocuous. If it doesn't, it's not a lifestyle, right? This is just something that's probably pretty easy for someone else to make. If you think about it, the barriers of entry are pretty low, but you really care about this company. You really care about this product, this brand that you've built. And so how are you going to show what you care about to somebody else? Because the truth is, if we sort of split this room into like 3/4 this way, if we're all brands, none of you people, if in the age of people interacting with your company, like it doesn't matter if you're here tomorrow. That's sort of sucks, right? So, but that quarter is sort of what we're looking for, right? And so if we think about it, we want to be that 26%. We want to be a brand with meaning because it matters. And why does it matter? We know it works. We know that from a consumer standpoint, they're buying it because they want to be feeling like they're a part of something bigger. From an investor standpoint, investors know that the growth story is there. There's something tangible. There's some there. And so from when you talk about emotionally engaged consumers, as your business is growing, it's not as much about like, yes, you want to build evangelism with your consumers, but what you really want to do is you want to build loyalty, because loyalty drives velocity, and velocity drives business, and that's where the rubber is going to really hit the road. So hopefully I'm sort of getting a little bit of attention. I'm getting a little bit of the blood flowing in this last presentation. So Lisa's going to take us a little bit through about how you actually do that.
So I mean, come on, we have to care about building meaning, because if you want to exist past product, you have to build meaning. So how does it work? So it really is about belief when it comes right down to it. You want to make sure that you've built loyalty, because loyalty means they come back and they don't see the next new thing on the shelf and say, oh, cool, I like your chips, but here's a new one. I think I'm going to try that one instead this time. So you need to give people something to believe in order to evolve from a great product, which I'm sure so many of you are working so hard to develop, and you're focused every day on the operations of your business. But in order to stick around and be that 26%, you have to be a lot more than that. So here are some examples of people who might have started out as product-driven marketing or product-driven conversations with consumers and moved to meaningful brand. And when they moved to meaningful brand, we all know what happened, right? So Dove was a very long time soap, talking about skin and talking about softness and talking about babies. And suddenly, they take a look at the market. They were first, But when they looked at the marketplace and they saw thousands of soaps competing with them for attention, it was really hard to be more than a product when you were just talking about the product itself and the product benefits. It wasn't until they started talking about meaning that things started to change for them. They started to talk about how women come in all shapes and sizes and that they're all beautiful, including you. And suddenly women sat up and said, I want to feel like that. That's the kind of brand I want to buy. And so suddenly they're no longer just a soap. They're a statement about yourself when you buy them. Similarly, Plum Organics, first in the market. In fact, the founder is here in the room somewhere. And they were first in the market making organic baby food and doing a wonderful job of it. But all of a sudden, as success begets success, other brands say, hey, that's a pretty cool space. I think I'd like to be in that space. There's a lot of room in that marketplace. And so more and more brands start to enter that space. And so you look around and you say, how am I going to break out of this crazy clutter? And so lo and behold, when you start talking about parenting and why you need baby food in a pouch to make parenting easier, and you start talking about the fact that we are parents making baby food for parents, the landscape opens up. And you're sick of brands showing happy babies when you know for a fact that it's not so much fun to raise a baby trying to eat food. And so suddenly you're building a relationship with consumers. Our products are made for you. And it opened up the conversation for them and broke them out of a very deep bench. And last but not least, REI. We all know the story of REI, who for many, many years sells wonderful products for camping and the outdoors. And if you looked at their website, you really saw a litany of sales prices and promotions, and they were a co-op, and so they had a great story there. But it wasn't until they launched the Opt Outside campaign when you really knew what they stood for. They stand for communing with nature. And on Black Friday, you should be hanging out with your family, communing in nature. And so they decided to shut down their stores, and they used the hashtag #OptOutside, and they put big banners on their stores on Black Friday, so you knew without any ambiguity what they were about. It was a protest against capitalism, and it was unambiguous.
And so what do all these brands have in common? Sort of you want to pull that thread, and the thread is really feels, right? When you see some kind of piece of content or you interact with the brand and you sort of get it makes you feel the feels. You're not quite sure what that feeling is. It could be humor. It could be you're sitting there crying. That's sort of like what the Super Bowl is all about, right, with these ads. None of us in here can make a Super Bowl ad. That's just not the level of playing field that we're on, right? But what we can do is we can build a story that starts to have an emotional connection with somebody else. There's as I was saying before, there's a there. There's something that people can connect to and people can rely on, and they can see themselves in the ads, or they can see themselves in the way in which you're writing on the back of the pack. They start to feel themselves in the story.
And so we're going to share with you 9 things you can do to help you think about how to make meaning in your own brands. And so the first one is really simple. It starts with asking really tough questions of yourselves. As we were saying before, when you're in a business and you're running a business, or you founded a business, or you're operating a business, your head is down most of the time. But all it takes is to just pull your head up for a little while and get quiet and think to yourself, why did I start this business in the first place? Why am I here? What was I trying to do? What do I stand for? What was the meaning I was trying to make when I decided to do this? Because it's right there. And we always say to people when we work with them, we're going to tell you something at the end of this process, and you're going to go, of course, I totally knew that. But you forgot it. And so this is a moment to stop and think about that. Do you still stand for the same things? Are you acting like you stand for those things anymore? And if you're not, are you willing to change? Because the purpose is you want to find that compass. You want to find that singular idea that you can articulate really clearly. Because as your brand gets bigger, as your business gets bigger, and more people work for it, it gets harder to remember and harder to evangelize across the entire company about what it is you actually stand for. And we call that the brand idea. So by asking yourselves these questions and then papering the answers and starting to share those answers with others, you start to get to the beginning of building meaning in your business. This is what we look at when we're looking at building meaning for a company. We look at what's most authentic. First, we look at what's most authentic to your company. And this is, we say this, always be true, because people have really great BS-ometers. And consumers are really smart. And so you can't just pluck something out of the air and say, hey, this is what we stand for because it's cool, or this is what's popular right now. You have to really think about yourselves and what is true for you. So know who you are. And once you know who you are, that's where you start. What are some things that are true about your business? Most true. Know your army. If you've been in business for a little while, you probably have some data, at least some sense of who your consumer is. Who are you talking to? What are they interested in? Try to extrapolate a little bit. Try to imagine who that person is. What else do they buy? If you don't have market basket data, you can't afford to do research, get smart craftily. Get scrappy. Talk to other founders of like-minded businesses. Ask them what they know about this consumer. Go stalk some consumers at the supermarket. Don't be creepy about it, but hang out and see if someone buys your product. Tell them who you are. I work for this company, or I started this company. I'd love to know a little bit more about why you picked that off the shelf. Tell me about yourself. And people love to tell you why they love your products. If you have an email database, reach out to them. Run a Survey Monkey. They're free. Learn as much as you can about your consumer and try to figure out who they are and what moves them. Third, think about your enemy. And it's not your enemy, it's in quotation marks for a reason, but it really just speaks to anybody can do a competitive analysis. Send someone to the supermarket. Look at all the products that you're competing against. Look at all the adjacent categories where you might innovate. And learn as much as you can, not just about what they make and how they make it, but learn as much as you can about how they're messaging what they make. They must know some things that you don't know. So see if you can figure out what are they trying to say that maybe you're not trying to say, because you don't want to say what they're going to say. You want to say something else. And last but not least, the big bucket we look at is what we call the invisible hand. Consumers, when they go to the supermarket, they think they're buying something they want just because it's what they want, but there are these invisible forces, which are culture, which are telling us what we're interested in to some degree. And so make some observations about. So Dove created a moment, but now you start to see one of the brands we work with, Angie's Boom Chicka Pop, walked into really the Dove moment of what you call femvertising. And they're founded by a female founder who is really badass, and she makes snacks, and she made the bag look the way she did because she wanted it to speak to women as they are, not how they should be. She didn't want a diet food. She wanted a food that any woman would feel comfortable eating. And so the brand idea we built for them was called Empowerful Snacks. And the ad campaign that ran off of that was called Crush It. And it was very much about female empowerment. And it came out of this cultural moment that we were starting to step into, where women wanted to be represented in media as they are, not as they wanted people to see them anymore. So once you have some sense of who you are, who you're competing against, who your consumer is, and what the invisible forces are that are working against you or for you in your business, then you want to start walking the walk and telling your story. Because you want to move people so that they feel your brand, not just buy it. And these are some of the ways we think about this. We think of it, you start with this kind of big idea about who you are, and then you build on top of it the way you're going to tell your story. And that doesn't just mean marketing. That means selling. That means innovation. How does this new way of framing your business, how does it beget an innovation framework for yourselves? How does it tell you what you should make? It starts to become a lot clearer, and you become a lot less opportunistic when you're really clear and you have this compass. And last but not least, how are you turning this story into something that a consumer can hear and feel? Is it the copy on the back of your pack? Is it shelf talkers? It's what can you afford? How are you sampling your brand? What's the conversation you want to have with consumers? What's on the T-shirts that people are wearing? I think Livio with Hippies showed you earlier an example of how if you walk the walk across your brand, it's a lot easier to get it. And it's never too late to have that conversation. And be consistent. Tell the same story everywhere. Consumers don't understand meaning if it's different everywhere they go. And they don't believe you, frankly, if it's inconsistent. And prove it every day. Every single day, every single thing you do, you are winning that consumer over and over again.
So hopefully that wasn't too overwhelming, and hopefully that's going to give you some tools. And how do you know if you're ready? So we heard once again a lot about building these brands, passion, meaning, personality. They're fantastic. These are some of the kinds of things that we would ask ourselves or ask our clients as we sort of start to get into this space that we might be interested in. The first one, are you making something good? Does it taste good? Are people liking it? Is there a positive outlook on this product? Fantastic. You're moving in the right direction. From a consumer standpoint, you probably started this business as a founder based upon some insights that were either your own insights or based upon somebody that was really close to you. That consumer might have changed a little bit, as Lisa was saying before. Live in that person's shoes. Get in there. Be analytical. What is this consumer doing, and how are they acting? You don't need to know everything, but you need to have a little bit better of an understanding. From a competition standpoint, probably help create a category, right? You got Me Too's from below, sort of nipping at your heels. You got the big guys from above. You start to get squeezed. What are you going to do? So if you go back to the beginning, like you want a paper, as Seth was saying before, as other people were saying before, the Cool House, and even Daily Harvest, you want to paper what you are, who you are, why you're doing it in the beginning while it's still fresh. Because as your business grows, it's going to change, it's going to morph, and it's going to be really hard to get back to that beginning. So you're going to get this point where there's a lot of competition in play, and you're going to need to know exactly what you do and how you do it. And the last thing is, listen, this is brand therapy. My Aunt Janice, she never went to therapy because she wasn't into it. But you guys probably need to have a little bit of gall, of readiness to get into this game, because you need to know that your founder and your employee and your board all need to be on the same page if you're going to continue to grow in an exponential way. And if this is too overwhelming, you can give us a shout, because we'll be here for the next 2 days. So let's be 26% or best. And I guess Jeff will ask us a couple questions.
26% or bust.
Pretty scary stuff.
Yeah, we've got some time here, guys, so let's have a seat. Good work.
Too close here?
Never too close here.
Close?
Never too close at NOSH. So one thing you guys suggest is that you need to know about your consumer, and you said you're at a point where you have some ideas. Is it possible to use brand? Is there any kind of way to do it truthfully, to take brand and grab new consumer groups and types, and what's the technique there?
So are you asking if you already know who your consumer is, how do you broaden the funnel a little bit?
Yeah, and is that something that brand should be deployed to do?
Absolutely. I think meaning helps you do that, because if you have some sense of who's already buying you, that should give you some insight into who also might buy you. There are adjacent groups in addition to the ones that are already buying you. There's some categories where it is what it is, right? If you're selling baby food, it's new parents. But in terms of demographics, you can always broaden that a little bit. I think we like to think in terms of psychographics. What are the characteristics of the kind of consumer who might like what you're selling? And you may not be grabbing all of those people. And so that helps you kind of reach out to different people and find them where they live.
Yeah, I would say it's a person that's the question that we try to nail.
So I love the idea of finding an enemy. I look for them all over the place, actually.
That just makes you paranoid.
Yeah, no, it makes me. When you go, does it have to be a competing brand? It seemed like, at least with the REI example, it was sort of the competing with the culture.
Yeah.
I think from if you're talking about like growing a brand within a category, and you're at that space where there's a lot of competition afoot, you need to definitely figure out a way how to carve out your unique value proposition and who you are and what you are and how you talk about yourself and the things that you make, because everybody's going to make the same thing. Puffs is a huge market. That doesn't mean it's $2.4 billion business. Doesn't mean you should start making puffs.
You make a great point, though, actually. I hadn't thought of it this way. The 3 examples that we used really did use culture as the enemy. I mean, Plum was looking at our premise when we worked on that was that we found a survey that said it was something like 97% of new parents feel completely alienated by what they see in social media, the way parenting is portrayed. And so that really became our enemy. We were going to rip the lid off of parenting and show all the ugly. And that was really what we were standing against. And Dove was doing it too. They were saying, enough of this like pretty, fancy, smooth, always beautiful woman. We're going to show a different ideal. And so culture was the enemy there
Yeah,
too.
I mean, I was thinking of the sort of great narratives, right? You have man versus himself, or
Totally.
or the protagonist versus themselves, versus some unseen enemy, or versus a rival.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're talking about is when you are making meaning, and going back to that slide we had before about the feels, really what that's about is finding something to believe in, somewhere to put yourself in reference to the brand. So the brand isn't just a product anymore. It actually holds a story of value to humanity rather than, I mean, that's a tall order, and we don't want to scare the heck out of you guys, but really that the best brands, that's what they do.
Right.
They find a way to connect with people beyond just making something.
It always feels like at launch you see, oh, I'm launching a brand. And then there's this long period where you're growing a product company, you're not growing a brand.
Yeah, all
and
hell
then
breaks
it's, we got to get a brand. So
Yeah.
what happens in that period, and what do you need to be doing to prep for that connection point?
I don't know if there's a secret sauce. I mean, I think our 5 things sort of try to get you to think about an inflection point. Like, listen, there are a lot of plateaus, there are a lot of growth plateaus in this business. We're trying to talk about one of them, which happens to be at that middle stage of growth, the what got you here won't get you there phase. I'm sure that's not the most unique thing to say, like people have experienced that before. I don't know that there's necessarily
Well, one thing you mentioned earlier that might be helpful is that if you're early stage, you probably still have a better sense of, you're still at that place of, oh, I know why I'm doing this. This is why I still remember the moment when I said, aha, I need to make this. I'm going to go spend the rest of my adult life doing this thing. And so that's a good moment to sit with a piece of paper and to say, hey, future self, this is why I'm doing this. This is who I'm doing it for. This is what I stand for. This is what I believe in. And then tuck it away somewhere. Hopefully don't tuck it away. Use it every day. But more likely you'll tuck it away while you're dealing with commands and you're dealing with, the shortages or the selling story that you're trying to make, or the guy who says no to you, or the customer issue, or you're going to be dealing with crap for the next few years. But hopefully every now and then you'll take out that piece of paper and you'll share it with new employees. Some of the companies we work with actually put some of that stuff into their hiring, their onboarding process. When they bring a new person on, they say, hey, just so you know, these are the things that are important to us. So that can help a little bit.
Yeah, it's hard to live it every day.
It is.
Super hard.
And everyone here, I think, is doing it, or they're challenging themselves to do it.
Yeah.
And the notion of remembering the ignition point is an important one, because there's a time where you keep that long fuse and then you light it again to show it to a bigger and bigger audience. How do people screw up when they're doing that, though? What are some great mistakes you've seen?
Sometimes they try to say something that's not true. I mean, that's the one we see the most. And Max and I always share emails with each other when we see a campaign that's complete crap. It's someone saying, like, it's like a goodness campaign, or a healthy campaign, or a belief in, or an organics campaign, and it's crap. It's not real. And so that first thing we said before about being authentic, do not pick something. I mean, the world is getting more savvy. The consumer is getting more savvy about that stuff. So that's the worst offender, I think.
Yeah, and I'd also say, like, live it. Like, you're going to pick this, what we call the brand idea. You're going to pick this thing. It's not easy to work it through your business. It takes time. It takes effort. It takes a lot of love. But if you are able to do it, from our experience, we've seen that you're able to succeed that much more.
And it actually does that thing you described before. If you really do the work of weaving this through your entire business, your velocity is unstoppable. I mean, the ones who align, they go much farther than the ones that don't.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much for
Thank
taking
you.
us
Thank
to
you,
the end
everybody.
here.
Yeah,
Good luck.